Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 71 of the Dynasty Junkies podcast. I'm a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network, or the DAP Network, as you will, which obviously we will. Of course, we've got a great show for you lined up today. I've got my co-host with me again here, Scott Sidlow. How's it going tonight, Scott?
Andrew, back and ready to rock. It's always nice having our rotation there, getting a little week off, watching some football. And then, boom, right back to it. Got some good stuff for you tonight. I've got a couple things I want to kind of rant about a little bit. So there'll be quick rants, I promise. But it's been an interesting couple of weeks, just NFL-wise and Dynasty, of course. So I'd like to get into a couple things tonight. Ready to rock.
Oh, bring the heat, Scott. You know I love it when you bring some controversy. Let's do it. This week we've got a great guest too. We're bringing on one of the, I think I almost say like one of the people that brought me into the industry. Like back in the day, we've got David Heilman, Dynasty Dorks, coming at you here. How's it going tonight, David? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I was excited when you invited me on, and I'm very excited about the content we're going to put out tonight. The questions were really fun to kind of think about. So looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, hopefully we can get into some good discussion in between Scott's rants and help some of our listeners come out with some ideas. This is kind of that time of year, and I wrote an article this week even about it. This is that time of year where I feel like trades kind of died down the last week or so, maybe even into the next week. But then as trade deadlines come up, it just explodes. So I think I said was the calm before the storm, because I think last week I had maybe like one trade in all of my leagues. Like there was just nothing, you know what I mean? And this week I've already got 2 done. I've got another one on the way. I feel like this is when we start to see that churn start to happen. You start seeing people kind of make an all-in push and kind of see what we can get into. So we'll get into that in a little bit. I do want to cover a little bit of the news. There was some breaking news today. I'm glad that they did it before the show and not on Friday after. I love when they do that and help us out. I think the biggest news is Cam is back in Carolina. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't see that coming. I'm shocked at that. David, what were your thoughts on this? Are you a fan of Cam being back in Carolina?
Yeah, I think one, it added some spice to your super flex leagues, because some people, I picked him up in my Scott Fishbowl, for my Scott Fishbowl team after Jameis was out. I got Taysom Hill, and now I got Cam Newton. But people, unfortunately, probably spent a little fab on Philip Walker, thinking they're going to get him for 4 to 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden Cam's back. So that throws it out there. But we haven't seen Cam and the Joe Brady offense. So I think that'll be fun. And I think anyone with DJ Moore is I don't think it was going to be better with Philip Walker. I think it's going to be better, at least better or the same with Cam Newton. And Cam, he's had some time off. Now he's ready to go.
Yeah, maybe this rest is what he needed. I guess, Scott, are you on that same page where it can't get any worse? So why not? Let's give Cam a chance, something like that.
I mean, yeah, it was hard for me to find a situation where I would be even remotely, not even excited would be the word, but like interested, right? Like that it's even a blip on the radar. I mean, Cam kind of looked toast last year, even really a couple of years ago, to be honest with you. I mean, just his body has just taken a beating, and but yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's a cool story, going back to where it all started. And yeah, you're right, David. The Joe Brady offense, man. Let's see Cam sling it again. Let's see him go out there and throw. Remember that rookie year? He had like 4,000 yards, and we're like, man, this dude could throw it. Like, let's see if he has any of that left. It might be interesting. It might be fun.
Again, I think I keep coming back to it can't be worse, right? Let's see what happens. Let's give it a try. Like that offense has been piss poor. I'll say it, like just been terrible. Robbie Anderson, where'd you go? You know what I mean? Like even DJ Moore has been kind of dropping in dynasty value. So I think it can't help but raise some of that value. I think too, I mean, PJ Walker is starting this week is what they said, which makes sense because Cam's just now getting signed. And I mean, there is a chance maybe he starts one more week while Cam's still getting ready or something. And Cam's not necessarily the youngest sprite out there. Maybe he has a bad game or gets injured or something and PJ still comes in. So I'm not necessarily panic dropping PJ. If I can hold him, I can, I will. I mean, I'd rather have him than guys like Andy Dalton or Cooper Rush or some of these other quarterbacks you might have picked up, right? Like, I don't know, it's not the worst idea. He's not the best quarterback. I mean, he's an XFL kind of guy. He's definitely a backup level, but in Superflex this time of year, you get kind of desperate. You're getting through buys, some injuries, and yeah, like you said, you're looking at things where it's like, I guess, yeah, I'll start Cam. Why not? Like, he's better than Taylor Heineke this week, or whoever. So,
well, something that's in the beginning of the season, we thought we were going to have some good dynasty quarterbacks coming up through the ranks, and we quickly learned with the college landscape, it's not what we thought it was going to be. And it looked like we had an abundance of good quarterbacks. All of these quarterbacks, the preseason hype was crazy. Then Spencer Rattler, then Sam Howell, and then all of a sudden it's like the house is on fire. Everything's on fire.
Yeah.
So Cam Newton, as much as he seems like he's 57 years old, he's still not that old. And he could try to, he's going to try to play himself into another contract. And it, could be interesting to see whether it's with Carolina or somebody else, but he's auditioning. And so Cam's he's coming to play.
Well, he got a pretty good contract too, so I feel like it's
very nice contract.
It's more than I expected for a half-season rental or even a 6-week rental. To be honest,
he got more from them than he did the Patriots.
Yeah, well, and he got the same contract that Andy Dalton got for the Bears. You know what I mean? Like this is a contract you usually give a guy that's your starter, or at least a full year backup. And I'm not sure he's signed for. I mean, he's going to play the rest of this year, I guess, but who knows? Yeah, and I mean, I said it on Twitter today. I literally. This morning, I was making a waiver claim. I was picking somebody up off free agency somewhere, and I clicked Cam Newton to drop him, and I was like, I don't know. He still might come back somewhere, and I switched it to drop N'Keal Harry instead, right? Where I'm like, I think Harry's done. He's toast. I don't need him anyway. And it literally was like an hour later that Cam Newton signed. I'm like, oh, you're welcome, everybody. All I had to do is click that box and then unclick it. That's all it took. So, I mean, he has been not in the news at all. Like, he hasn't been mentioned. No one's talking about him. Like, he's never even been sniffed anywhere. So it was just, I don't know, pure luck today. So I loved hearing that. The other big piece of news, we can't go on without talking anymore about OBJ. Everybody thought for sure he was going to the Packers. He was going to going to the Chiefs. He's going to the Patriots. Like, there were probably 10 teams that were listed as like very viable options. Nope, none of that. He ends up signing with the LA Rams. I'm surprised. I don't think they need any more help with receiver there. I don't know if does this help Stafford and that's it? I mean, I'm not sure what to make of this. Scott, what was your first reaction on that news when you heard it?
Just stupid. It's
okay.
Who just complained their way out of LA because they only got 2 targets? Deshaun Jackson. Mm-hmm. Okay. They couldn't. I mean, Djax can still run. He's still pretty fast. I know he's old, but he's still flying out there. I mean, they couldn't give him any playing time, and now OBJ is all of a sudden good. It makes zero sense to me. I don't understand it. This is one of those moves, like, normally, look at what they did just bringing in Von Miller a week ago, and like they're going all in and going for the Super Bowl and all that, and I can respect and appreciate that. And they're taking a totally different approach. Everybody wants the draft picks, all that, and they're saying screw the picks, we're taking the players. You know what, that's cool. Like, change it up, do something different, see if it works out. And obviously they're on the right track, I think, this year. But to me, this is a move that I don't know, like, can it get better? I think it can only get worse. I think this is a move that can only backfire. It cannot. How's it going to take you to the next level? What's it going to? Cooper Kupp is not. What is he not doing for you? Literally just blowing the league away this year, right? Robert Woods, you know what you're getting from him every week. Van Jefferson stepping it up. Tight ends, the running backs catch the ball. Like, what could this do? Like, you're bringing this guy into a locker room. He's been a cancer everywhere he's been. It makes zero sense to me. I don't understand it. I don't know. Unless Robert Woods, like, tore his ACL and we don't know about it. I mean, I have no idea how this makes sense, how he fits with the offense. I guess he's going to take Van Jefferson's role, who he's been playing the same amount of snaps as Woods and Kupp. So I guess, but what's he going to do other than complain? Like, I don't get this. I don't get it at all.
I'm right there with you. I think this definitely hurts Higbee and Jefferson more than anyone, but I think it lowers the ceiling on Kupp and Woods too. I mean, it for fantasy, this doesn't help anybody but Stafford, and it's only very minimally that it helps Stafford, right? I mean, we didn't see any help for Baker when OBJ went there. So
he was out there dropping passes when he did get targets. So
and he's demanding things, and he's a diva, and there's locker room disturbance. Like, and does anybody remember who the Rams took with their second round pick last year? Tutu Atwell, a receiver. Like, what are we doing with all these receivers? You know, you can't start receivers everywhere, right? Like, you can't just line a receiver up at center and call it a day. Like, this whole thing blew my mind too. David, where were you at with this? Is this something that you saw coming? Did you predict this, or is this entirely out of left field for you too?
Yeah, I definitely didn't have the Rams in my top 5-6 teams. Ironically, my cousin did like one of the first things in our group chat when OBJ got it was like, how long until he goes to the Rams? And he was just joking because the Rams are the super team right now.
Yep.
And, then of course, everybody was getting down to the last couple teams, and Rams were not talked about. And then even when it was announced, then there was like a hold up, wait, never mind. He's on the fence. And then it was like, no, for real, he is going to the Rams. I'll say this, obviously I think this is there is an opportunity to sell here because there are people that are,
oh my God, yes,
there are people that are excited about it. And I'm not completely against it. I think, people were like, what is Antonio Brown doing going to the Bucs? And he's not going to do anything. He's been okay. And he's a much different receiver than Deshaun Jackson. He can run the full complement of routes. But yeah, it's going to hurt Van Jefferson. It's going to hurt Higbee, but he definitely does not have the ceiling that he would if he were to go to the Chiefs or the Packers. The Browns obviously were a bad fit. It was a bad fit under Freddie Kitchens. It was a bad fit. And as a Giants fan, I fully understand the locker room and the ego and all the other stuff that goes with it on top of the injury concerns. But obviously, if Woods or Kupp were to go down, OBJ would be a good insurance policy for them right now. And he's a third option on a team that, obviously has no problems on offense, and their defense is pretty good. They're one of the more balanced teams. So, I mean, I don't really know how it puts them over the top because, I feel like there's other areas they could have really used an offensive lineman at the trade deadline. But they got Von Miller, which was really nice. But we'll see how it goes. I do have, OBJ on a few of my Dynasty squads, and I'm going to test the waters and see what I can do to sell him for sure.
Well, is now the time, or do you wait a week and just see if, maybe he gets on the field, maybe he gets a little more hyped? I mean, now it's kind of all optimism and hope and all this, and maybe this is the best time, but maybe he plays a week and gets 6 catches for 80 yards. I mean, of course, he gets 1 catch on 9 targets and dies. I mean, like, literally, we don't know what could happen.
That's here, where right? you test the waters and you see, because you might be able to get out from under him before it's too late. But if he goes out there and puts up a dud, then the people that were already concerned are now they're digging their heels in.
Yep.
So I'll kind of look throughout the show and see what I can find. But I threw out there earlier, let me see them OBJ trades, like what's going on right now. And I got, of course, some sarcastic remarks, but I did get some actual trades that were sent, so I can read them off to the guys, so you guys kind of hear what's going out there. Like this one, I got a 2023 first proposed to me.
Yeah, what? I'll take that. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'd be happy to take that. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's
interesting.
I mean, we talked a few weeks ago about players what do you do with, and he was one because it's been 2 years that we haven't been able to get anything for him. At this point, I mean, man, I might smash a second. Like, well, even 22. I mean, I just got to get rid of this guy.
Well, so here's what I'm looking at DLF Trade Finder. They have one yesterday. Beckham. This is yesterday. So it's before the news that he signed, but it was very close to signing. Everybody knew he was going somewhere. It's Beckham for Trey Sermon and a third. Like, that feels very fair. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a clue which side I want on that. But the fact that then equates to, and it's a 1 QB league, but still, that does equate to a 2023 first. Whoo, man, like that is a sell price. I would
like this. So
a first
FF Junkie, which is close enough to the show. He sent Rager a 4th and a 23 second and received OBJ and Conklin. So slight
Okay.
overpay, but was also doing it, expecting him to go to a contending team. This one was 2 seconds before the move. 2 second, it didn't say whether there were 23s or 20 seconds,
right.
but it said 2 second-round picks.
Well, I think what we're seeing here is the Rams are doing what we're probably going to talk about today, is that if you're contending, go get players that are scoring points, right? And it kind of is a real life version of what we see in Dynasty a lot, where there are teams that you're like, why are you making that trade? Like, what are you doing? Or like, why are you picking that guy up? Like, you don't need that. Nope, it's points. I'll take it. And the Rams clearly don't like the draft picks. They just don't want to deal with the draft. And again, in Dynasty, there are managers in every single league that I'm in that just trade every pick away. And I have one league, I think, as soon as I got my picks, as soon as I got my 23s, I traded all them away too. I'm like, screw it. I don't want to deal with it. Like some leagues, I'm just like, nope, I don't want any of them. Just because it's more fun to trade them away and like go for the whole thing. You know what I mean? So it's interesting to see. I am curious to see what happens with Beckham. I am also going to be testing the waters this week. I put him on the trade block in one league where I was just like, come get him. You know what I mean? If you want him, let me know. And I think some of that is it's a very passive way to do it. And there's some ups and downs, pros and cons. Do you use the trade block? Does it work? But my logic is that sends an email to the whole league saying, I've got him. If you want to know who's got him, it's me. And I'm interested in selling him. That's something, right? I'm not putting like Jamal Agnew, come get him. You know what I mean? Like, no. This is an actual potential league winner if he is the OBJ of 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. If he's not, okay, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, I'm doing the same. I'm going to be testing the water. So from there, I want to get into some of these injuries. We've had a lot, but not a ton this week. I do think there are some from last week that I want to kind of get into and just make sure, I guess, where we are with it. And we don't need to go too far in the weeds on some of these. I'm just kind of curious, I guess. The other QBs are the ones that I'm looking at mostly. And obviously with Darnold out, PJ Walker is starting this week. We got Cam joining that team, but is PJ Walker worth starting in Superflex? Are we even considering him, Scott, in some of your leagues? I know you've got a lot of them. Or are you that desperate?
So he was a guy that I picked up a couple years ago that I grabbed a whole bunch because it was just grab him off waivers, stash him. He knows the system. Matt Rule knows him. We don't know what's going on there. And remember, this was when they had Bridgewater and we didn't know, who was going to even be the quarterback. After I saw him play a little bit, I have zero interest. Zero. He's just not he's just not an NFL caliber quarterback. Really good dude. Yeah. I've heard like interviews with him. He's cool. I like him, good dude. But unfortunately for our fantasy teams, no interest. I'd rather, Colt McCoy or, if Murray's out type of thing. I mean, and pretty much anyone else. Like literally, I would honestly, there's almost no quarterback that I wouldn't start like in the super flex spot, right? I would start a quarterback 99.99% of the time. PJ Walker's the one guy I would probably start anyone else over.
Well, so yeah. Well, if you have like a PJ Walker or Kenyon Drake, you're going Drake.
Kenyon Drake.
You know what I mean? Like that's not, exactly. Like there are some of those guys that you're just like, I don't like that at all. But if you get that, like your 11th player on a start 11 team and you're looking at that, or like Van Jefferson or PJ Walker in Superflex, you know what I mean? Like I might start Van Jefferson. I think he's got more
100% this week, but now that OBJ is there.
Well, that's what I mean. Like that's a tricky one, right? But that's just kind of where I'm saying, like some of those guys where it's like in that, man, that's not pretty. I don't like getting.
But you're going pretty far down to get to Van Jeff. You know what I mean? So, I know there's bye weeks and everything going on right now, so you might not have someone else. So you're better off starting the quarterback in those cases. But
I've seen some rosters that are just decimated with injuries too. You know what I mean? Like there's just nobody left, and maybe they were starting Darnold and Rodgers isn't sure if he's going to play at all this week, and it's like, well, maybe I put PJ in there for some sort of quarterback. I mean, you never know what you're dealing with some of these guys. But David, are you on that same page? Is PJ someone you're even thinking about this week?
No, and I'm in that boat in a contract league where my only other option Zach Wilson, and he's hurt, but I'm gonna play someone else. I was able to get Dearness Johnson, so I'll put Dearness Johnson in that spot over him. So I'm the same boat. I feel like you're not gonna get the upside that you're looking for with a quarterback.
No, I agree. And I think that's a perfect segue because Dearness is obviously on this list too, because his teammates, Nick Chubb and Demetri Felton, I believe, are both potentially out this week. They didn't test negative today, apparently, because that would have come out and everybody would have known. That makes me nervous. If it wasn't today, then that's another positive. That's not good, right? It's not a false positive. I mean, we saw it last week with Barkley and a couple other Giants players that were, tested negative or tested positive, then tested negative the next day. Yeah. And so they were all eligible to play, but we didn't hear anything today. I was thinking today we'd hear Chubb tested negative. He'll be okay. But they don't have enough time. I mean, if he tests negative the next 2 days, that's his only chance. So I think it's Dearness Johnson time. So, I mean, yeah, you were just saying you're starting him. I've got him in a couple leagues that I picked him up for cheap, and hell yeah, throw him in there as a flex. You know what I mean? Like maybe even an RB2 in some leagues, because it's that time of year where you just look at it and go, man. But yeah, I mean, Dearness Johnson, I think, could be a beast. He did well. Wasn't that a Thursday game a few weeks ago?
Yeah,
I think, right?
Thursday night he dropped 150 yards.
Yeah. Scott, do you have any Dearness Johnson across your portfolio of leagues?
Yeah, I have quite a bit. Unfortunately, he was. I had him and Dontrell Hilliard about 2 years ago. I was adding them everywhere, and just as kind of just where I grab running backs and I stash them, stick them on taxi squad where I can, whatever. And this year, after seeing the Chubb Hunt deal, it was like, well, these guys are never going to play. And so, they would be at the end of my bench and I'd cut them. And then, of course, all this happened. And I was like, oh, man, I had so many more shares. But, yeah, I'm starting Johnson in quite a few leagues and fully confident in his capability to produce. So, especially with the running back landscape right now. I mean, honestly, to me, he's locked and loaded. He'll be in every lineup where I have him for sure.
And we've seen what the team does with him when they get, when he's the guy. He did well, and that was with Felton in the game. I mean, Hunt's out, Chubb's out, Felton's out. It's load up on Johnson. And I think too, Landry's kind of dinged up. They just got rid of OBJ. Like they got Peoples-Jones, they got Njoku, but I mean, like that offense is going to need him.
Peoples-Jones,
tight ends, man.
Yeah,
Peoples-Jones missed today
for
personal reasons.
There you go. No. So like it's getting even worse. Well, let's use this as another kind of segue. Then is Baker worth starting? Because Baker's hurt a little bit too, right? He's got a shoulder injury or something. I mean, do we start anybody but Dearness on the Browns? I mean, is there anybody else on that offense?
Not in a one quarterback league. Baker's the streamer. That's it. I mean, not only is he injured, but there's not a high pass volume team.
Yeah,
he doesn't run enough. They don't pass the ball enough. There's just really not a lot of upside. And, he just doesn't have the weapons. In a super flex league, of course, I mean, you're probably don't have too many options, but, in a one quarterback league, Baker's, I'm not even really that excited about if he's my second quarterback.
Okay. So how about this? I have Burrow on bye. I'm starting Hurts. Darnold's out. So it's either Goff or Baker. Where are you going? Goff at Pittsburgh or Baker?
I'll take Goff. I think Goff is one of those quarterbacks that gets a lot of crap, but Pittsburgh's not terrific. And I think there could be some, dump off passes to Hawkinson and Swift, right? I mean, like Goff always has some upside. I would take Goff over Baker this week for sure, but I might even say for the season at this point. Like I'm just not sold. It's not sold on Baker.
New England.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one is really tough. That one's really tough. And I have been the victim of the garbage time Goff. I'm like, he didn't throw a single pass over the line of scrimmage, and he got 90 yards in that drive. Like, mother.
Yeah. That's Goff for you. But again, perfect segue, because the other running back group I wanted to talk about is the Patriots. Right, we got Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson both potentially missing games or missing time, missing practice at least with concussions. They got, James White's out, right? So they got Brandon Bolden pretty much as the next guy up, maybe some AJ Taylor, right? And those are guys that I'm sure Scott has everywhere for the same reason we've just been talking about, stashing running backs. I mean, there is one rebuilding team where I've been starting Brandon Bolden all year just because I don't really care. I'm down to like nothing, and it's ironic because now I'm like, oh crap. I mean, I'm still going to start him, but don't get points, man. What are you doing?
He's probably going to ruin your first pick. You're going to have the 103 because of him.
Well, yeah, I am undefeated in that league, right? I'm 0-9, and I'm like, I could take a win at this point. It wouldn't be terrible, but I'm still not aiming for it. But I also feel I'm one of those players too. I'm one of those guys where I'm like, I can't bench him now. You know what I mean? Like, that's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, I've started him all year when he's had nothing, and I bench him. Like, no, I can't. So I'm still going to start him, but yeah, I'm going to be crossing my fingers for 2 yards in a cloud of dust kind of thing, and just okay, good, that's it. Whew. But I mean, what are we thinking about for Harris and Stevenson? Are we worried about these guys, David? Are they somebody that you're kind of pulling from lineups or worried about in general and making other moves this week?
Yeah, I mean, I dropped Stevenson to pick up Cam today, and it's a super flex. It's a dealer's choice, so it's not exactly a super flex. It's got a super flex on it, but it's a dealer's choice. The top score picks what the flex is every week. So it'll be quarterback or receiver or running back. It's part of the Real Reality fantasy competition. And
that's fun.
It was quarterback the first 2 weeks, and I was good. I had Burrow, I had Kyler Murray. Then nobody picked quarterback again for like 7 or 8 weeks. So I completely changed my strategy. But when the news came out for Cam, we happen to have open waivers today. If this was yesterday, I would have had to wait 24 hours. But I said, you know what, Stevenson, because even if Stevenson comes back off concussion protocol, if Harris comes back too, then it's not really much. But if Harris does not, and he does come back, Stevenson, I think, could be very interesting.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If Harris is out and Stevenson plays, Stevenson could be a beast, and vice versa, right? If one of them plays, the other one, if one's out, the other one's going to do well, and I think Bolden might get a couple carries. But I mean, if they're both out, obviously you're not going to start them if they're out. But it's like if they're both in, what do you do there? I mean, it's one of those running back groups that we've had to deal with for what feels like forever. New England, they never tell you what's going to happen. And they game plan so specific team to team, and that their offense and defense are both schemed up so much. I mean, like worst case scenario, they're both healthy. And Scott, are you starting Harris with confidence even if he's not inactive? I mean, is he somebody you feel like you can lean on after this week?
No, he's actually done better than I thought he would this year. But I think part of that is James White going out, and then they're kind of figuring out what they want to do with the different roles there. But he's been the clear first and second down back typically. So yeah, I don't know. I think I only have a couple of shares, and where I do, I don't have any other options. So I'm either going to start him or take a 0, or maybe Deontay Foreman's on waivers. But that's about my only choice. But if I have pretty much any other option, I will go the other direction.
I'm putting Connor in instead of Harris in one league, which I didn't expect to be doing. But hey, Connor blew up. Edmonds is out. I mean, that offense is looking different. I mean, as a kind of, in a way, a pivot on that one. I mean, is Hopkins going to play this week, right? Murray might not play. Hopkins is still kind of dinged up. I mean, are we worried about that high-powered Cardinals offense? I mean, what have you heard this week, David? I guess you may be more in touch with the injuries even. Like, is Hopkins a threat to miss again, or do you think he's actually going to play this week?
Hopkins I'm more concerned about than I am Murray. The way that Murray's talking, he said he's feeling so much better and yada, yada. So I think he is closer to playing. But Hopkins, he's been limited for a couple weeks. And I think that they just realized that, like, we might need to just shut him down for a little bit. And those soft tissue injuries, they take a little while. So I think Hopkins could miss a couple weeks. We were talking about like potential trades and stuff, and I was offered, Hopkins, and I stayed away because I don't know.
Yeah, he makes me nervous, especially this week. And I mean, again, if he misses this week, then you're right. He probably misses another one or two because, I mean, why risk it? Why hurry him back? But if he plays this week and gets re-injured, right? I mean, that's not good either. He's an injury risk if he does play. I mean, that's sort of what we were just talking about before with Harris, where it's like, do I trust Hopkins? If he's playing, I'm starting him. He's that good of a player to me. I'm not going to bench him if if he's active. I'm playing him, but it's not going to feel good. You know what I mean? Like if we hear at 11:30 that Hopkins is active, at 11:40, I'm going to be scratching my head going, I'm just going to leave him in there. But is that the right move? Like, oh man, I'm going to be thinking about it for the next hour or two until he plays. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be an interesting Sunday. But Scott, are you kind of on that same page and a little nervous about Hopkins? Or are you, where are you at with him?
Yeah, as one of my highest share wide receivers, definitely it hurts. It's crazy to me how his value has just like plummeted. I mean, it was, there's a team I co-manage with, a couple guys from the Dynasty Roast podcast, and we are somehow like an unstoppable force, but it's a 16-team league. So when you really have like one player who's killing it, you're going to win a lot. And we're trying to get a running back or something. And literally our best offer for Deandre Hopkins, it's a contract league too, so it's a little bit weird. But this is what it came down to. It was Elijah Mitchell and a third, and it's a Debbie league. So that third is literally like, I don't know, some 18-year-old who's joining college. You know, I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing. So Elijah Mitchell for Deandre Hopkins was like our best offer. And I was like, no, like, why would you do like, I can't believe, I can't believe how far Hopkins' value has fallen. And it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, he still is an elite quarterback. It's still a passing offense. He's still a guy who can run great routes. And the comment I keep getting is basically like, he's the new Julio. He's always hurt. You don't know if he's going to play. And I'm like, what? He's missed that many games? Really? Like, I don't know,
Recency
man.
bias.
I'm a little salty about it, and I'm probably not looking at it with the right lens, but I'm very, very annoyed at how little value he has currently.
He was someone else I was pulling up on the trade finder on DLF because I was curious, because I'm the same way. I've had a couple of offers in one league. I had an offer come in. It was like, I want to say it was a second and Van Jefferson or something like that. Like one of those, not Van, but like another player sort of like that, where it's like, but that's not a terrible offer if he never plays again or he's injured. So I'm looking it up here on Trade Finder, and there was one on Tuesday in a super flex league, DeAndre Hopkins for Calvin Ridley straight up. Which one of those would you rather have, DeAndre Hopkins or Calvin Ridley right now?
Hopkins.
Scott, let's start with you. Yeah, Hopkins, right? David, are you on the same page?
Yeah, it's Hopkins.
Ridley's got way too much question right now. But like the fact that to me, that shows how low Hopkins' value is. Somebody who has Hopkins was willing to take the risk on Ridley. Granted, Ridley's younger, and if he was playing, that would be
a year younger.
Accept.
1 year.
Correct. And we've had this discussion before. I know. This is a thing that people get into. Is like, age, does it matter? I don't think it does for either one of them. But I'm looking at it more like Ridley is taking some time away from the game. It could be 2 more games. It could be 3 years, right? He could
retire.
He could be the next Andrew Luck and never play again. And that's where Hopkins is valued. Oh my goodness.
You have to follow the money though. Look at Hopkins' contract. His dead money next year, his dead cap is $29.9 million. In 23, it's 15.5. In 24, it's 7.75. Like literally, he has 3 more years.
Yep.
I mean, he's not going anywhere.
Nope.
And you know what? He's one of those guys that it's not the speed, it's not the physicality. Like, he's a route runner. He is incredible. And especially the scrambling, like that backyard football thing that like what we're talking about in Chicago is how Allen Robinson doesn't have that for Justin Fields' scrambling ability because he is a technician and route runner, but he doesn't have that like scramble drill. Hopkins has that all day. And paired with the perfect quarterback and the perfect system, he's not going anywhere. Like so you know what? He is the next Julio to me because he's going to die on my roster. I'm not trading him ever. Well, I'm rolling with him.
This all says is that you all should go try to trade for. It sounds like these guys can't trade for him because they have him. But if you can trade for Hopkins, I mean, it sounds like the price is going to be a lot. Even if you don't have to offer Elijah Mitchell or Calvin Ridley. Even if you offer something better, you're still probably not paying full price.
Well, here's another one that just stood out to me. It's a 1 QB league, but again, it's Hopkins for Mike Williams and a 22 second, and Mike Williams for Hopkins. And like I look at that like somebody is just getting out on Hopkins. They just don't want to deal with it anymore.
And this was like recent. This was
2 days ago. Yeah, 2 days. Those are both safe league trades.
But you're getting out to what? To a guy who can't stay healthy, is inconsistent, and he's a free agent. Like, what are you getting out to?
Which is not a guaranteed pick. I mean, like second rounders are not solid options. I mean,
in a 1 quarterback league, I don't even want seconds. Honestly, they just clog my roster. I don't even know what to do with them. There's literally nobody past like pick 9.
Yeah, seconds are worth something in trades. That's about it.
I'm not watching the game, but I just saw Jacoby Brissett is in serious pain with a knee injury right now.
Yes, he is down right now, and yeah, that could be an
interesting
twist.
Tua backing up?
He is. Tua's putting his helmet on, so this could be an interesting twist of a game. Because if Tua gets hurt or something, obviously, and gets worse on that hand, we'll see. But to kind of get back to this, and we'll wrap up our injuries and move into the trade talks, because I do think we're kind of getting there anyway. But where I was going with some of this too is these are the kind of injuries that you can buy the dip on. I know nobody likes to buy an injury dip, and there's always this, I don't know, I feel like, especially on Twitter, there's this "I told you so" feeling, right? Where it's like, oh, you never should have traded for that guy. I told you not to buy the injury dip. And it's like, yeah, but I got 4 good games out of it. I'm like, what the hell? Who's it? It depends, always depends on the price, right? Yep. Twitter is terrible at context. Twitter is terrible at nuance. All you have are people out there saying, buy DeAndre Hopkins. And it's like, okay, I'll send Jonathan Taylor for DeAndre Hopkins. I bought DeAndre Hopkins. I did the thing. No, dude, price is everything, right? Like when we're saying to go buy somebody, or we're saying, we're going to talk about this in a second here, but when we say to go get somebody, it's not overpay for that person. If we're saying to sell somebody, we're not saying sell for a 3rd round Debbie pick. You know what I mean? Like, go do the right valuation. Go get somebody that you think is going to be on the rise, or someone that is going to help your team. And I think a lot of times, especially on Twitter, it's all about dunking. And it's like, you never should have bought DeAndre Hopkins. Like, well, what if I sent Mike Williams in a second for DeAndre Hopkins? Oh, that's okay. I'm like, then shut up out there. Like, what do you can't be blanket with this. Like, every single one of these players has their own valuation. Every manager in fantasy has their own valuation. It's so hard to give trade advice. And I know we all do it, where people ask us questions and it's like, I need more info. Like, does your league trade a lot? Does your league value picks at all? Or do you have people that know what they're doing? Are there 3 people that are phoning it in? Like, all that stuff matters, but nobody has time for that. You don't type all that out. Nobody reads it. So it's like, we just have to give generic answers. Like, I guess go get Pittman. I don't care what the price is at this point. Just go pick up Michael Pittman. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with that stuff. So with that in mind, and again, unless there's a rant you want to go on before we jump into this, Scott, I want to get into some of this trade talks. We've talked about trades every week. This is something in the Junkies is kind of our battle cry is trade. Being a part of the DAP network, obviously our brother over there, the Trade Addicts pod with Russ and Rocky, they do this for a living, right? So we're kind of on that same vein. But I always like to look at this like, if it is a trade deadline, if you're looking and you've got week 12, week 13, I've even had some that were defaulted at week 10 or 11, which is odd. And we've talked in the chat and moved it back because, the league has moved the whole extra week. But like, if you're a contender, what kind of trades are you looking for, David? If you're looking to kind of make that final push, what sort of things should you be looking out for, and help some of our listeners? Maybe they're not quite all the way junkies yet. Maybe they're just brand new junkies. Maybe they're still learning how to play Dynasty. But like, what kind of trades are you looking for when you try to, make that title run?
Yeah, I mean, when you're going for that title run and you want to, so first thing you need to do is kind of assess what your needs are. And then you need to look and see who are the sellers. Because I'm not going to go over to Andrew, who's 7-1, and say, hey, are you selling? He's not.
Go. Yep.
But, Scott's sitting over there and he's like, he's 1-7. I'm like, hey, man, I'm in need of a tight end. What are you looking for? Find your weakness, find out what your weaknesses, go from there. And when you're looking for depth pieces, you're going to want to look for value, because I'm not going to pay a whole bunch of draft capital for a guy that's going to sit on my bench. So if I'm picking up a starter, I'll pay more. But if I'm picking up someone that's just for depth, hey man, what's it going to cost for Cordero Patterson right now? No one's looking at Cordero Patterson like they are Jonathan Taylor. It's not going to cost you the same amount of money. So,
especially on a rebuilder, like if a rebuilding team that's selling, I would, if I'm rebuilding and I have Cordero Patterson, I am trying to get him off my roster for as much as I can to a contender, right? Because he's 30. He could do this for a couple more years, but if I'm rebuilding, give me youth. I'm with you 100%.
I got Cordero Patterson for a 2nd round pick and Kenneth Gainwell.
I don't mind that at all. I think that's a pretty good value.
So, and then opposite, I was in another league where I'm selling, and I sold him for a 2nd round pick and Elijah Mitchell.
There you go. So, yeah, I like that too.
So, I mean, you can go both ways with it, but again, you're looking at some of these guys where you're assessing the guy and saying he's not a long-term person. I'm not going to say, hey, Scott, I'm going to throw you a 4th round pick for it. Like, you still got to give him something that's worth it. But looking at his roster, he's rebuilding. He wants young players and picks. So I'm not going to target his young players. I'm going to offer him picks for his older players that he's, and I want to be aggressive, because not only am I trying to get this deal done for me, but I'm trying to block Andrew.
Right. Well, and I was even going to bring that up. Like you mentioned it a little bit, like, but know your audience, right? Know your league. Find the guys that you think might be trading. And honestly, and you hit on this too, but like find your weakness, but go find your opponent's weaknesses. Like if I go out there and I look and you're 7-1 and I'm 6-3, you know, or like 7-2 and I'm one game behind you, and I look and I noticed you have George Kittle as your tight end, right? And that's it. And you've had a rough year, but you've gotten lucky with some other guys or whatever. But I'm like, George Kittle's been hurt. He might be a good asset. You might be feeling kind of confidence. You may not be looking for a tight end. Well, maybe that's when I go out and I get Waller. I go trade for someone else like that because I'm like, well, that's not somebody that you're looking for. Maybe I can get one by you on that, because you don't want to be in the same market as other contenders if you can help it, because then the price just goes up, right? Yep. So I like to do some of that too. And it does spend a little more time to do that. You know, it takes a little bit of effort. And for someone like Scott, who's in 40 leagues, that may not be something you have time for with a new kid at home. So it's like, well, maybe there are some shortcuts to this, right? So I guess, Scott, how do you prioritize some of this? If you're on those teams where you're contending, how do you kind of shortcut this, or what's your go-to move on some of those?
So in the non-point scoring season or early on in the season, I generally am targeting players specifically. So I'll look for value dips, something like that, and I'm sending out a lot of blind offers. I may go into 10, 20, 30 leagues and just throw out a second round pick for this player, and we'll see. Do I get, a couple counters? Do I get a couple accepts? We'll see what we get. Now, as we start getting especially to the last couple weeks here, I'm definitely putting in time. But the thing is, it's not in all 46 leagues, because there are leagues where I'm not contending, or I'm not, I don't have the assets to make a move or whatever, right? So I'm really able to focus in those like 10 or 15 leagues where I can get to that point. I did a lot of trades actually the last probably 10 to 14 days, like a lot. Definitely volume is up here as we get to this point of the year, and injuries and all that. It was very quick. See, the thing is, my average trades were way down from like say weeks 4 to 6 or 7 there. Like I was going to point out how I am like not getting any trade offers. It's so weird to be in that many leagues and not get an offer. Like, is that crazy? Like, what's 46 times?
Yeah.
11?
Is my email broken?
How many opponents are out there, and I'm not getting any offers? Like, this is so weird, right? It's just a very weird year. And then all of a sudden, boom, it just exploded. And I'm still sending blind offers, but it's exactly what David was saying. You're targeting the team. I'm looking at the teams that are like just lost 3 in a row. They're on a downward spiral. Maybe they're like annoyed or pissed, and you're like, all right, let's go. They're on tilt. Let's go take advantage. Let's see who a veteran we can get rid of, because they're thinking, oh, I just lost 3 in a row. I'm not gonna win. So do they go? Maybe I'll get rid of this guy or whatever. Because I'm definitely still looking for value. The one thing if there's one takeaway that I can give you today, it's that I am not an all-in guy. I don't find very many, just maybe because of the way that I play or the way I build my rosters. Like, I have a lot of young cores that generally maybe maybe they do better than they should have. And so I don't want to give up a lot of youth or a lot of future assets if my team's still young, where I can truly build a dynasty. Like, I want to win 3 out of 4. So I am very, very rarely, and I can't really remember the last time that I've done like a quote unquote all-in trade, like where I'm just giving up like all my picks and all my youth and buying James Conner or something. I mean, I'm just not, right. I'm not doing that. So I'm still looking for value, even in areas where I have a definite need. You still have to target the teams that you're likely to get it from, and you have to pay the right value, but I'm typically not overpaying unless it's a very, very rare scenario where I'm one piece away. Because what happens is that one piece tears his ACL next week, and then you just screwed yourself next year too. You know what I mean? So I can't do it.
Or that one piece is Myles Gaskin, who's done nothing tonight, right? Like, or that one piece that you get, like you trade something, like even if it's like a second for like, I don't know, like a Devin Singletary, like last year, you know what I mean? One of those kind of like, well, I could use a little running back depth. Let me try to pick. And then that guy doesn't do anything anyway. And you're like, damn, I wish I would have held the pick. So I'm kind of with you in my general thesis and what I usually do. And I think we've talked about this so much. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but obviously there's production value and there's trade value, right? And I think a lot of times I look at trade value almost all year round, except for right now. Now is kind of where I pivot to production value being a little bit more important. I don't mind losing on a trade in the sense of value on a calculator or whatever as much right now. Yeah. If I feel like it helps my team, it helps my lineup. If I've got buys or injuries that are kind of making it rough. But like if I'm 7-2 and I've got, Burrow on a bye this week and I'm going up against the other guy who's 7-2, I might make a trade to bolster that lineup for that 1 week and sacrifice a little of my future to add to this week, because that is a 2-game win if I win, right? Because I win the game and they lose the game, right? So like some of that context I think comes into play. And I think a lot of times too, people look at it, and I don't think anybody in Dynasty talks about who are you facing this week, because it's a long game, right? It's never it doesn't matter who you're facing. It doesn't, just play your best lineup. I will literally play it like redraft. And we've talked about this over and over. This is the type of year. This is where you get to that season where you have to put your feet down and go, we have got to win this. I don't care what the future looks like. I'm with you though, Scott. I'm not giving everything away. I'm still worried about the future, but not as much, right? Like I'd much rather win a title and lose that 3rd round pick that I didn't care about anyway, than hold that 3rd and maybe trade it for someone later and not win the title. Like, no, give me somebody, give me a little guy. Connor, I think you can get Connor for a 3rd in some leagues. Like I guarantee you, there are definitely some rebuilding teams that have him that are like, you know what, I'll take whatever I can get. I don't know if he's had an injury history of his own. Like maybe there are some teams out there. And again, blanket statements are terrible for this, but I feel like some of that stuff, like that blind offer, like send Connor for a 3rd. What do you get back? You're like, oh, okay, well, give me so-and-so and your 3rd, and I'll give you Connor. Okay, here, bench player for Connor.
That's what I was going to ask, is what's Connor's value? Because he's a kind of a perfect candidate for someone that you're a contender, you're looking for something, because he's not someone you're going, this is going to be a long-term fix. Nope. But you just lost, whoever it was, you just lost one of your running backs for the season, and you want to pick someone up. Like you had Chase Edmonds. Now you go get Connor. And would you guys pay a late 2nd for James Conner?
I probably would in the right team.
Yeah.
And I'm looking it up here on DLF. This is why I was going this direction. Like if you send a 3rd and they counter with a player and a 3rd, right? Well, there are some trades really recent. Even today, there was Tony Pollard in a 2nd, or 23 2nd for James Conner. And I'm like, that sounds about right. Like a 23 2nd is kind of like a 22 3rd, right? You got that lost time. And again, it's not equivalent. The classes are different. But I'm looking at like, that's exactly the kind of trade I'm talking about. Pollard's probably seeing your lineup, but I'd much rather have Connor this year. He's actually doing something. He's got a better chance to help my team. And sending that 23 2nd, okay, fine. This other one, I love this one. Connor for Rashad Penny and a 22 2nd. It's like, give me Connor in a heartbeat on that one. You know what I mean? Like Rashad Penny is pretty much nothing. A 22 2nd is probably as much as I'll pay, but Penny's nothing. You know what I mean? Like I don't mind that at all. So those are the kind of trades I'm trying to move, where it's like potential youth or future pick or somebody with hope. You know what I mean? Like one of those guys that has maybe next year is Rashad Penny's year, and a 2nd, sure, that's worth it for Connor. Yeah,
and like just to position wise, contenders are going to buy running backs, and rebuilders are going to buy receivers.
Bingo.
And like if you're a seller, that's how you need to look at it, and basically like get rid of all of your running backs.
Yep.
Unless you got Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris on your bench, like you're getting rid of all your running backs.
Something I know you even mentioned this in some of your notes here, David, is something I like to do when I'm contending is I consolidate. When I'm rebuilding, I expand. Right. So like if I'm rebuilding, I'd much rather trade like a Keenan Allen for 3 pieces. Right. Yeah. Like give me 3 ascending assets for 1 declining, because then it gives me more of a chance to regain that value. I don't mind waiting the time. But if I'm contending, I'd rather trade those slowly increasing assets at the bottom of my bench for someone who actually might make my lineup, right? It's the same logic. Like running backs are always the thing you get rid of. I completely agree. When you're rebuilding, you don't need a running back on your roster. There is no benefit to you.
So just a side note. So I completely forgot about a trade that I made yesterday. And so when you told me Myles Gaskin didn't do anything, I was like, crap, because he's with one of my running backs in that real reality, and I have to play 3 running backs this week. But no, I traded him for TJ Hawkinson yesterday. So
there you go.
It's a redraft league. But
wow.
For a second, I thought I had a Myles Gaskin did nothing. And then I realized I got out. Finally, I missed my window the first time. So the next time I had it, And so yesterday he tried to get, I think it was Josh Jacobs from me and I said, no. He said, I really need a running back. He said, maybe I'll do Gaskin. I said, I'll send it. And he immediately, I'm like, all right.
So straight up for Hopkinson?
Straight up.
And even in redraft, that's an easy smash. I love it.
Yeah. And so now I'm trying to flip Goddard or Fant for something else.
Love it. Yeah, Gaskin's got 10 yards so far through pretty much a half.
Always look to do moves. So like when I said I did that move earlier, so I had Cordero Patterson, traded him for a second round pick and Elijah Mitchell. I went and immediately flipped him Elijah Mitchell for a couple seconds because someone really needed a running back. So always be looking to make moves, and one move can easily be a chess piece to another move.
Oh yeah, no, and we love kind of like putting the 2-step ahead, right? Like playing 2D, 3D, 4D chess and just sort of figuring it out. I think too, there are times where I've made trades like in chats or DMs where I say, would you give 2 seconds for this? And they say yes. And I'm like, all right, give me a minute. I got to go find another second. You know what I mean? Like I don't have 2 seconds. Let me go get one. And like, that's the kind of stuff I love where it's like, I can't send that through the thing. I can't blind send 2 seconds, but if they're willing to pay that, great. Give me a minute. I literally can go to get a second for a lot of people on my bench. Let me just go get that and be done with it. You know what I mean? It ends up being a three-way trade.
The nice thing about being a rebuilder is you're not necessarily looking for specific pieces. You're just looking for capital.
Yep.
So I'm like, I don't even like this player, but I know other people do. Throw him on that trade and I'll accept. And next thing you know, I'm saying, hey, Scott, I saw you talking about, this guy on your podcast. I'll throw him your way. But yeah, it's, acquiring assets and not just looking for specific pieces.
Yeah. And I think this kind of goes into the next kind of topic I want to get into. And I think we've talked about it a couple different ways. But Scott, how do you craft a trade? How do you come up with the start of a trade? Like, where does your mind go first? Is it blind offers or is it league dependent? Because for me, it's kind of league dependent. But where are you at in general?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a league that, I'm more active in, that I know people, then I'll be having conversations. I was just actually, before we jumped on here, I was just chatting with one of the guys about he's one of those guys who's lost 3 in a row, and he's like thinking, oh man, I'm probably not going to get it this year. He's got a bunch of running backs. I need a running back, and so we kind of had a conversation. Nothing's come of it yet, but at least we've started that dialogue, right? And so my main theme to him is like, all right, maybe we don't make a deal right this second, but just know I'm looking for a running back. And so maybe you get an offer you like from someone else. I might beat it, type of thing. So we kind of have that dialogue open. If it's, like safe leagues or something where, you may not have the interaction you do in your local leagues, that's more where I'm just targeting those teams that are at the bottom and just, throwing out offers, and vice versa too, right? Teams where I'm rebuilt. Like I have one where I'm still sitting on Melvin Gordon and I'm like, 0-9, and I'm like desperately trying. So I'm like updating trade block like every day. Like Melvin Gordon, he's available. Somebody take him. So it's constantly one of those things. So yeah, it's definitely league dependent.
Well, I bring this up, and I think it's something that we talk a lot about how we build trades, and especially during Find Me a Trade, we go through a lot of that. So it's not like we need to get too in the depths of it, and we'll get into more of that obviously during that segment. But there was a trade I just pulled off today that I feel like I don't think I won the trade. I don't want to. It's not like that kind of a thing, but it just gets me out from under some of the players I've been trying to trade all year and had no luck. Right, where it's just like I've had Gaskin and Connor on my team all year. I'm 3-6. I've got 2 first next year. I'm like, maybe I just punt a little bit. Like I won last week or 2 weeks ago and I didn't want to, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, damn it. Like, so I'm going to be in the middle anyway. And I got somebody else's first. So I'm like, I sent Keenan Allen, Gaskin, and Connor for a 22 first in Van Jefferson today, like just now before the show. And I'm like, I think I lost that trade on value, right? Allen is probably about a first, but Van Jefferson is not worth Gaskin and Connor. But in my mind, as a rebuilder, I couldn't get anything for them all year. No one was offering what I thought was fair value. And I'm like, I need to get these running backs off my team at some point. And he wouldn't take Allen for the first alone. It kind of built into this. And I was like, give me Van and we'll call it a day. And it kind of went back and forth and all this. I'm like, I got the first. That's what I was really looking for. It sucks to lose Keenan Allen, but I also feel like that's a declining asset in its own right. Give me the pick. It'll accrue value. It gets me out of that potential points problem. You know what I mean? Like there's a couple of other factors in every trade. And I don't think putting a trade on Twitter and saying who wins this trade is kind of fun in my mind to see what the valuations are, but it's never like it matters to me where I'm like, oh, how dare I lost that trade? Like, it doesn't matter, man. Like each league is so unique. It doesn't really matter. But that one, I started out by putting all those guys in the trade block. I went in the group chat and I mentioned it. I said, hey, these guys are on the block. And I noted there was a guy that had a first. He hadn't paid for the league yet. And I noticed that he hadn't, you know, he hadn't paid in safe leagues. You can't trade it. And I'm like, well, he's one of those that may not care about it. You know what I mean? Like he just hasn't had the ability to trade it. It doesn't come up as an option, but it's not because he doesn't have it. You know what I mean? So I'm like, maybe I can get him to pay for the league and take Keenan Allen. He's 6-3. He could, I mean, that's the kind of person that's buying, and it ended up working out. Yeah. So that was one of those where it was like a chat combo with trade block kind of start, but like every league is so unique. You know what I mean? Like David, is that how you start? Do you tend to send a lot of blind trades, or are you more of a chatter like Scott and I?
Yeah, I mean, most of the leagues that I'm in, I know the people. Like I'm with, you know, my buddies or whatever. Or I at least know, like, so then I'll throw a chat up. But in the leagues where I don't know people, then yeah, I'll throw the blind offers out there because I'm not going to be like, hey, I don't know you. How was your day? And it's like, right. Listen, I want to make a trade. So I'll throw it out there. But yeah, I'm very much, you know, I stay active in the group chats and things like that. And so when it comes down to it, you know, I'll throw it out there. Some of the things I do for my personal leagues to kind of drive things up, I will I keep like an Excel sheet of the draft board, and I'll just throw it out there randomly as the commissioner and just say, hey, this is what the draft board currently looks like, and just get people kind of thinking about draft picks and things like that.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And then I'll do the not just my trade block. I'll do the trade block Tuesday. So I'll just do a screen record, run through everybody's trade block and say, everybody update your trade blocks. I'm going to send out a little advertisement later, and then I'll throw in the group chat, and it's just everybody, not just mine. It's everybody's, just to get the group talking. But I know that I'm going to be more active than most of the people in there. So if somebody does say, yeah, hey, who needs a running back? I'm going to benefit from that because I'm going to be one of the first people that responds. So it's not just, you know, just doing your own individual stuff, but it's just getting the whole league going. Because if Scott sees a trade, he's going to have an itch to make a trade. So it doesn't, it benefits you. Action benefits.
Well, I was even going to say that we've all seen that where a trade like kind of shakes the cobwebs loose and you start to see the floodgates open, right? I think it was last season. There was a league that I was in. There were no trades in the entire league until week 8. And then I think there were 8 trades in week 8 and 9 combined. And it was just everybody just started making moves. And it was like, it was silent, dead silent. There was nothing in the chat. Like everybody was just like, hey, good win this week. And no, that was it. It was just bland and generic. And then I remember I made a trade with someone. It was a pretty big trade. I forget exactly what it was now. But then like 2 hours later, the next one comes through. And then like 2 days later, the next one. And it was just like, oh, here we go. Okay, this is what we're looking for. And I was involved, I think, in 3 of those 8. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like sending offers. I'm like, let's go. Let's do this. And it just, you know, starts to warm the whole crowd up. So I love that idea. Yeah, that's a good point. Scott, though, do you have any of those leagues where it's just like stale, stagnant, annoying, and then it just sort of, like you said before, like just it happens. It just all kind of clicks.
So one of my favorites is one thing that I love about Dynasty is sharing and growing the game, right? And so I've been in a redraft league with guys that I've known from high school and college for 20 years or something like that, right? And I was like, all right, guys, listen, it's time for you guys to get in a dynasty. We need to do a dynasty league. Let's do this. You know, we get enough people together. We're kind of scrounging the last few guys because it's like, oh, we got to get to 12. You know, who's going to be interested enough, right? And so there were a couple fringe guys there, let's be honest. But we literally went the entire year. We did our startup, I think, in like August. And we went the entire year without a single trade.
Yep.
Which is just hilarious. A dynasty league with no trade. Now, for me, it was wonderful. I mean, I absolutely crushed. I dominated wire to wire, most points, championship. I was like, this is awesome. Like, cool. You guys don't want to trade? I'll crush you. You know, so like I kind of felt bad. But, you know, at the same time, we replaced a couple guys. Couple trades were made, and now ever since it's just been super active and fun. So it is kind of, to me, I'm convinced that it is about having a great commissioner like Dave. What I just learned is I need to have David commission all my leagues because like what he's talking about there is awesome. I've never seen anyone do that. how many leagues am I in? I've never seen anyone do that. So that's really cool. I do have commissioners that are fun and active, and they keep the chat alive, and they do fun things. And we even have local ones where we like get together and watch the games and stuff. Like, obviously, when you're able to have that camaraderie and that rapport, you can definitely make trades and get things done. But when you're in a safe leagues and you don't know these guys, like, what are you going to do, right?
And I feel like there are some orphans that come up in that, and that's always a good time when you get trades too, because somebody just took over a team that they don't care about at all, right? Yeah. So like when that happens, but at the same time, if you have, like you just said it, if you have a startup in August, the valuations haven't changed much. You know what I mean? So it makes total sense that you're not moving there. Right. But again, if you have a startup in May, right, and you have the rookies all in there and everything, between May and August, you could have some valuation change, and that's when trades start to happen. But yeah, during the season, you see the most of it, I think. And I do a lot of trading. And especially, I love trading in the off season. It's one of my favorite things. Like on a slow Wednesday in June, I'll just like pull up a league and be like, let me send an offer to every team. You know what I mean? Just like, why not? Let's see what happens, But during the season, it's like there's so many things going on. There's lineups, there's waivers, there's content creation, there's podcasts to listen to. There's all this stuff going on. It gets tricky. But no, I love some of that stuff, David. And I am a commissioner. I might do some of that. I like that idea where it's like, let's keep the league moving here. I'm a fan.
Yeah, it's all about creating an ecosystem, and as a commissioner, you obviously want to make sure that you are, like I had a couple guys, yesterday, the guy starts off the conversation like, you guys are all scared. None of you guys are making trades, and it's kind of the reverse psychology. And he was trying to provoke trades. He was just provoking people, and they were all getting kind of pissed. Like, hey man, just because we don't take your shitty trade offers doesn't mean we don't like the trade. It got a little riled up. And then as the commissioner, I came in and I said, hey, just a reminder for everyone out there, this is the franchise tag amounts for next year because we're a contract league and the average 10 salaries. So I said, so if you're selling anybody that has a 1.5 contract, because this is what you could tag them at, because, people are like, I'm not going to give I'll give a first round pick for someone that's got an expiring contract.
Right.
But if it's Josh Allen and I can tag him for $26K, I might do that. He's on my team, so I can't. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just I kind of threw that out there. Then boom, next thing you know, the guy that provoked everybody, he got a trade done.
There you go.
So, but it's creating that environment. It's fun. It's not but yeah, the draft board, it just gets people going because they see like, oh, right now I'm pick 8, or I don't have a first round pick and I want one. And so they get that itch to do it. And it definitely gets people going.
I'm definitely doing that in my league. Maybe not tomorrow. I'm kind of busy, but maybe next week, like before the trade deadline, that's a smart move. Just to be like, hey, reminder, here's what it looks like if the season ended right now. You know what I mean? Like that just kind of gets people talking. I love it. Well, I guess, was there anything else you wanted to rant about in there, Scott? I know we had some other things, but we're at an hour already. Let's kind of keep it moving. But do you have anything you want to get into before we do Find Me a Trade?
Yeah, no, I got a few shots in there. We can move on to Find Me a Trade. Just real quick, the last thing, we're talking about some of these trades we made here. I'm curious your guys' opinion on this one because it's real. It's weird. There was a weird reaction from the league. But I have a lot of Jalen Hurts shares, and I think he's a terrible NFL quarterback, and I don't think he's long for a starting job. And I've kind of lost, Akers and Dobbins and a whole bunch. It's just been a wreck, right? And so there were a couple small pieces, but it was essentially Hurts for Watson, straight up, basically. Is what it came down to. And so my theory was literally the first comment was like, well, that's an interesting trade.
It is.
And yeah, you think because we're two terrible teams. We're like the 2 worst teams in the league. And here we are like trading quarterbacks like in week 9, so it's definitely a gamble. But I just feel like if you had a lot of Hurt shares and or any player, take any player, is the gamble worth it? Does it make sense? Not that you would do it, but does the logic make sense?
The logic makes sense. I totally get the logic, especially if you're rebuilding and you're not really, you don't really care too much about this year. I think that there is some potential for Watson to do more in the future than Hurts. I mean, I don't know if I want to say that too confidently because we don't quite know how that's going to settle, but Hurts may not have a job next year either, right? If you're not a good NFL quarterback, you don't tend to get a lot of opportunities except for Jameis Winston. And he had to get LASIK to get a second chance, which, that's not ideal. So, I mean, there's a couple of different, ways you could look at it. But I think value-wise and logic-wise, I get the trade. I mean, I would probably rather have Hurts myself, but I don't hate it.
So here's the gamesmanship of it. We're both the worst teams. But now he's getting a guy who's scoring a ton of points, and I'm getting a guy who's not.
Right.
So now I'm going to have
lower
a higher pick.
Points. Right.
Right. And so that kind of was the kicker for me of this is probably a dumb trade. But if I end up with the 101 next year, you never have to use it. You can always, trade. And so by that time, maybe we'll know more about Watson. Right. And so then we can make some decisions. So I just felt like I gave myself more options.
I don't mind that. Yeah. I think it's a fine trade.
It was fun. It's fun.
Hey, wait, that's the reason we do this, right? It's supposed to be fun. I mean, it's same like with my Keenan Allen trade I mentioned. I just wanted another first. You know what I mean? At this point, I don't want the points. Just give me the picks. You know what I mean? I'm done with these guys. And nobody was sending offers that made any sense. And I'm like, you know what? This will be fun. But that's the whole thing, right? Have fun with it. So speaking of fun, one of our listeners submitted their league this week. It's a sleeper league, which these are always fun to get through, but this one's a unique one. Submitted by Ed Franz at @Ed_Franz. Thanks for submitting your league, Ed. It's a unique one in the sense that it's not one that we usually do. We don't do a lot of leagues like this, and I felt like maybe it'd be a good one for us to, because we always end up getting into Superflex, tight end premium, and all these big. Not every listener does these leagues, right? Some people are in different leagues. So this one's a 10-team, 1 QB league, which I think is very unique in the sense that we rarely talk about 10-team leagues. We rarely talk about 1 QB very much anyway. So I felt like this would be a good stretching of our muscles, right? Let's find this guy a trade. So it's a start 9 with 10 teams. So it's also kind of a short starting roster in a way, but it's QB, 2 running back, 2 receiver, tight end, and 3 flex. It is a 4-point passing TD and PPR. So there are some different add-ons there. Ed sent this as his take on the team. It's in a productive struggle. He drafted it this past summer. He said, this season, I purposely traded back and tried to acquire picks and young talent in the draft. He said he's tried to make some moves that would just bring me to long-term value, completely ignored the need to win year one. And looking at his team, I like what he did with that logic. It definitely looks like a team that is not looking to win this year, but that's okay. He's got some youth. He'd like to continue losing this season while still building for the future. That productive struggle, such a good idea. And so his thing here is he just wants to see if there's anything we can do now or maybe before the season's over. What moves can he make? So I'll go last. Let's Scott, why don't we start with your trade since David's the guest? Why don't you start with yours and kind of what were your thoughts? How did you build this trade?
Yeah, so
I'm not going to go through the team, by the way. I'm not going to bother. It's too annoying on Sleeper, but just trust us. This team has some good pieces, but the trade is more important than the league.
Yeah, I like what he's done. I mean, it was interesting in not only the format, but also we're mostly dealing with middling teams and helping middling teams make decisions where to go or help contenders find that piece, right? And we really haven't done one like this. So it was very unique from that sense. But basically, what it came down to for me, I like a lot of the pieces. I like his strategy here. It is a strategy I've been successful with in the past, but it's hard to necessarily identify what you want to do. If you have 8 picks, then you can say, well, I could trade, 2 of them for somebody or something, but I don't want to give the picks away yet based on what he's doing here. So what I was looking at was being a non-tight end premium. I thought, I love TJ Hawkinson. He's one of my favorites. I have him very highly ranked. However, being not premium, only being 10 teams though, it was kind of challenging to find, it's almost like every team had one good tight end, right? So it was kind of I don't know which direction to go here. The nice thing is being in year one, it looks like most of the teams have some sort of chance here, right? So he can kind of go any direction and pick a team. The one that I ended up finding, he has Logan Thomas on IR, but we don't know what's happening there, if he's coming back. Their quarterback situation is Fitz coming back. What's going on with that offense? The team is much worse than we thought it was. Thomas is older as it is. He has Higbee filling in, and then we just had this OBJ trade that may have some effect there. So I kind of thought this would be the best opportunity for him to make the trade with SSJ Julio and throw Hawkinson over. Now, he has Akers on IR, and Akers we've talked about this on this podcast, that the odds are that Akers will not come back from this or not come back in a productive, meaningful way. However, if you guys have been paying attention, there's all sorts of videos out there of him running around and doing all this stuff. Well, that is fantastic because I will be selling. And it may not be right now. It may be somewhere down the line. And so even with this productive struggle, I'd like to find injured players. And so in this case, I thought, trying to get Akers might be a nice piece that then if he likes Akers, cool, he can fit him in his plan. Or as we get into draft season next year, or the hype builds, he would be able to move him for another piece that he likes. I would have probably tried to make some sort of deal there for Akers and Elijah Moore, but Moore just broke out. So it's might be hard to make that move, especially since the guy kind of needs wide receivers as well. So what I came up with was Hawkinson and Gallup for Akers and Moore is where I would throw that out. I think Gallup coming back, Hawkinson right now, it gives the team he's trading with the opportunity to move up and compete this year. And then obviously for our guy who has a great team name, by the way, he would get potential pieces there to play with down the line. And that's really all you can do at this point is continue gathering assets and put yourself in position to make a move probably in 23 with this team. But again, keep acquiring those assets so that you can make those moves when it's time.
Well, I'm right there with you. And I do think I should mention at least some of the players he's got. I feel like it's not really fair to do this. He's got Fields and Watson are his kind of quarterbacks. In a 1 QB league, I don't mind having, a little bit weaker quarterbacks. You can usually acquire them pretty easily. So I don't mind that. I mean, you can get a guy thrown in on some trades. It's worth starting. He's got DeAndre Swift and Javonte Williams as his young running backs. I don't mind that at all. He's got CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Jerry Jeudy. You know what I mean? Like a pretty solid young receiving core.
Love it. Yeah.
Again, in Hawkinson, like you said, at tight end, like he's built for the future more than now. I totally agree with that. And I think too, he's got he's got Dobbins on IR on his own team, which is another, again, young running back. His draft picks, he's got 2 firsts and a second and a third or whatever, but he's got 2 firsts in 22. He's already got 4 firsts in 23. And it looks like there are some pending trades where he might be even trading more for 23 to kind of get in that Bijan lottery. But again, in a 10-team league, if you think about it too, like a late first is an 8th pick, perhaps. You know what I mean? That context changes a little bit in that late area. They're all kind of middle at that point. So every pick is a little bit better. Even if you're getting the best team, you're still 10th. That's not that bad in a normal 12-team mindset. So mine was very similar, which is what I was going to jump on next and do something in the same vein where Elijah just broke out, but I prefer Elijah to some of the other receivers he's got on his team, especially on his bench when he's got guys like Jalen Darden and Simi Fihoko and Josh Palmer. Like these guys are just like, I don't think any of them are going to see the starting lineup. He's really shallow after those first few. And so I'm looking at it like this class is supposed to have a lot of receivers and he's got 2 firsts, but I want another one. I'm looking for a first, give me another first. And I think what I've seen from Jerry Jeudy has been underwhelming. And I'm not saying that he's a bust and I'm not saying I don't like him, but I'm saying there are people out there that are hardcore Jerry Jeudy fans. So I was going to make the same trade partner with SSJ Puleo, and I was going to send Jeudy for Elijah Moore in his first. And this guy is 7-1. Our team here is 1-8. You know what I mean? Like he's not winning anything. He's going to have the first pick.
He's starting Tyree Jackson at quarterback.
Correct. He is starting, which I think is a bold move, but in a productive struggle, I love it. Because you're not going to get any points from that. But at the same time, I like the idea of getting Elijah Moore and a first for Jeudy if you can pull it off. Not everybody would agree with that logic. That might feel too much. But Moore is a little bit hit or miss. That this other guy could look at it and say Moore just broke out. Maybe now's the time to get out. Maybe he thinks Judy's a better long-term asset. He's looking at it like my late first and a 1 QB. That's not worth that much. So, I think that's the same kind of trade you're talking about there, Scott, is getting rid of a little bit, but not a lot, and then potentially adding a lot. And I think Moore is a terrific target. So, David, what do you think about both of those before you jump into your trade?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is I offered kind of 2 options for my trade, and they both were very similar because I talked about Hawkinson and I talked about Judy, which I think, you could probably swap Moore in there, but you might have to wait a little bit because Moore's he's a hold right now because he's on the downward. But there's people out there that think Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson are going to be the Denver Broncos starting quarterback next year. So there's people that are really excited about Jerry Jeudy, and those people could be very well right. I mean, we didn't know Odell Beckham Jr. was going to go to the Rams. They could be right, and we could see that. Or they could be sitting with Teddy Bridgewater again and wish they would have got under it. So I'm with you on that. I think it's a great move. You're getting Elijah Moore plus the pick. You're also, you're able, you could flip Elijah Moore if you wanted to, but you could easily turn Elijah Moore in that pick into equivalent to Judy. And then with Hawkinson in the trade below, again, you're acquiring acres, and you're hoping that next year someone is willing to pay you, first round pick for acres when they see the hype videos.
Well, and I think too, and this is something, again, I know Scott's mentioned this too, is you don't have to make these picks, right? Like I don't want to make it seem like, well, the 22 class isn't that strong, so I don't want any of those players, so I'm not trading for picks. That logic is flawed to me. There are people out there that will, and we see it happen. How many years have we seen this happen where their class is terrible, and then you get to the rookie season, and it's like, oh man, okay, I want back in now, and now they're willing to pay a premium, right? It happens every year. I mean, rookies are always the fresh
rookie
new
fever
thing.
Is a real thing.
Come April, it's going to be like, these guys are the best players of all time. You know what I mean? Like you want to act like that's not true, but it's true, right? And at the same time, we've seen this happen, and I've done it myself, where I'm on the clock with the 108. And I end up trading for next year's first and a second or something. You know what I mean? Like, you can make moves like that, and you want 23 anyway. Maybe you're looking at your team like, I'm not really ready in 1 year. I need a little bit more time. You can make those kind of moves on the clock every time. You don't have to make that trade right now, but you get on the clock, and all of a sudden, somebody is there that a guy wanted, and he's willing to pay for it. So again, I think that the picks are just more insulated, and I think we're all on the same page. Get more of the picks if you can. Get more of the youth without giving up too much of the youth. I mean, none of us are saying to trade Fields or Lamb or anybody like that. We're not saying get rid of your big pieces here. Don't trade Swift. This is one of those teams too. In a 10 team, I like having running backs more on 10 team leagues, even if I'm rebuilding, because especially if they're young running backs then, because those running backs are going to be how you win this. And you honestly, could turn this around in 1 year.
His team could be competitive right now if he wanted it to be. He has no depth. But that lineup that he has,
pretty nice.
I mean, Fields is the number 3 quarterback just the last 2 weeks. So Fields is starting to come on. His quarterback obviously has sucked all year. But Hawkinson at tight end, with those receivers and running backs, he's got a starting roster for sure.
Yeah, and I like it as it's a really odd 1-8 team, right? It's like that team should be better than that, but the fact that you're not, lean into it. Right? Like, let's try to get a little bit more and build more for the future. I love it. And I think that this team has got some very serious potential to turn it around in 1, maybe 2 years. And again, for a productive struggle draft where that's kind of your plan, I think he did a great job. I think this team is definitely built for long-term success. And I think a lot of times we don't talk about it too much, but that productive struggle out of the gate, a lot of people don't like doing that. I know we talked about it with Brandon a couple weeks ago, where it's like, give me the win now. And I totally get that logic. I am very much that way. But if you're going to do a productive struggle, this is kind of what you're looking for. Go get a ton of young assets, get even injured like Dobbins, keep him. Don't trade that guy away. Keep Swift, keep Javonte Williams. These are the perfect kind of players you want to have because they're going to go up. Swift could be a top 3 running back next year, right? I mean, he could be a stud. And then you got Dobbins and Javonte vying for your RB2 or flex. Solid. You know what I mean? Like, you're looking great. I think the one thing I would say too is in 1 QB leagues, you rarely see a quarterback go in the first unless it's like a Trevor Lawrence or like a generational talent. But he's got a bunch of seconds. You can get another quarterback there and bolster that backup. You can trade one of those seconds for a third and a quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need a quarterback. I don't mind at all starting Watson even. You know what I mean? Like, put him in who cares? Put him in your starting lineup because it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, you've got him on your bench. He'll be somebody next year. That's exactly what you're looking for. This guy has got his eyes on 22, and I love it. So again, Ed, thank you for submitting your team. I think that we gave you some good ideas. Hopefully you can get something out of that. Just sorry, just so we're clear on this too. There was a pending trade that I don't think happened. I think he mentioned this, and I want to make sure I cover this at the end. But he has a pending Ayuk 2023 first that isn't on this roster yet. So he has Ayuk adding to this roster as well. And I think that changes a little bit of that calculus. Like maybe you get Ayuk and you trade him away right away before he dumps value.
Did he get Ayuk, or was he getting the first?
I assumed he was trading one of his first for Ayuk, but maybe you're right. Maybe I misread that. And he submitted this earlier in the week, and maybe that's why he got the extra 23rd or 23 third, but 23 first. I'm sorry. But either way, I mean, like that's either of those assets are fine, whichever one you're getting, even if it's already on your roster. Yeah. It's good future work. So yeah, so we appreciate that, Ed. Thanks for submitting that. Definitely keep coming those. If anybody's got a league or got a team where they're unknown what to do. I mean, obviously we're getting close to the trade deadline, so we may not be able to get to it now, but obviously there's a lot of rebuilding teams. I think we're going to see a lot more people submitting their teams as we get into this, non-point scoring season. The contenders know what they want, but the rebuilders have a lot of questions. So if you're rebuilding, if you're 1-8, you're going to be 1-9 or something like that, send us a note, hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Andrew Hall FF. Our co-host here tonight, Scott Sidlow, at Scott_Sidlow. Our other co-host, Rocky, obviously at Dynasty FF Addict. Our Junkies podcast at Dynasty Junkies. You can hit any of us up, put your name on the list. We can get to your team. But before we go for the whole time here, Dave, thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate it. What do you got going on? Where can people find you, and where can people see what you're doing too?
Yeah, it's Dynasty Dorks, one word. Then fantasy football. You can get me on YouTube. You can get me on Twitter. And Dynasty Dorks on TikTok. So we're doing some stuff out there as well.
Oh, so, for the kids even.
Yeah. So doing some dancing. No, I'm just kidding. No dancing. A lot of memes, a lot of short, funny videos, things like that. But so yeah, check it out. We got a few. I got one where it's literally just a meme, and I almost got a million views on it. It was like 920,000.
No way.
It was a stupid meme, and all it is a laughing sound effect in my head. And apparently people think I look like one of the Watt brothers.
Perfect. I love it. Knock it all you want, but there is a ton of great short form content on Twitter. It is a terrific app in whatever you want to do. If you like videos, if you like comedy, if you like information, I love it. I love it, David. That's the way to do it. And get with the kids, man. Get with the hype. Get where the eyeballs are going. That's the way to do it. So
yeah, I will say Dynasty is way over the kid's head.
Oh yeah.
I remember I put a top 10 out the other day, and it was like, top 10 quarterbacks this week, and they're like, "You don't have Aaron Rodgers?" And I'm like, "He's not playing." So he's outside of my top 10.
It's a bold move, David. Bold move.
I'm like, if he was playing, he'd be closer to 10, I promise. But I have him right now. I have him unranked.
Smart. You got to teach them kids too, right? Get them into Dynasty.
But yeah, it's definitely fun. And there's some more people getting on there. Marcus Grant's on there.
Yeah.
There's some
Adam Rank, I know, is on there too. Yep.
So it's fun. There's a lot of good tools. You get to, do some different things on there. My kids love it.
That's the way to be. All right. Well, again, thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate that. Anybody who's still listening to us tonight, we really appreciate you joining us tonight and listening to our podcast here. Feel free to subscribe, rate, and review, do all those things. Smash that like button, as the kids say, right? Follow the DAP Network. There's a bunch of great shows on there. We've got Get Real with Casey Kasem, like I mentioned, Trade Addicts Pod, the Fantasy Timeline. There's a whole bunch of stuff we're putting out. So, feel free to jump in there. Give us some reviews. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know how we can be better. But then again, always make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Follow all of us on Twitter. With that said, I guess, Scott, if you got any mini rants before you take us out of here, the floor is yours.
I'm done for now. I'll save it for next week. Thanks, Ed, for submitting for Find Me a Trade. We definitely need to do an all FMAT show here coming up soon. That'll be a good time. But yeah, that'll do it for tonight. Thank you so much, David. For David from Dynasty Dorks, for Andrew Hall FF, for our man Rocky, for the DAP Network, I'm Scott Sidlow. Junkies out.